This is the story of how an energy drink, something that started out as a local tonic in Thailand, somehow built a global media and sports empire. It's a story that, when you really get down to it, isn't about a drink at all. This is the story of Red Bull. But let me start with a question for you. Seriously, think about this. When was the last time you saw an ad for Red Bull that was actually selling you Red Bull? With someone holding a can, saying how great it tastes, or some celebrity telling you to go buy it? You probably can't remember, because what you see instead, well, it's human achievement at its absolute limit. You see a Formula One car warping around a corner at over 300 kilometers an hour. You see a surfer dropping into a wave the size of a building, a motorcyclist doing a backflip over a canyon. And then, somewhere, almost hidden in the corner of the screen, you see that little logo. And that's it. Now, that was no accident, not at all. It was a deliberate, decades-long strategy. See, Red Bull wasn't just building a drink company. They were building an entire world. And it all started, of all places, with a chance encounter in a Bangkok hotel. Okay, so picture this. The year is 1982. An Austrian businessman, a guy named Dietrich Mateschitz, is in Bangkok, Thailand, for work. And he is wiped out, just struggling with some serious jet lag. And he starts to notice that the local workers, the taxi drivers, the truckers, the guys putting in these brutally long shifts, they're all drinking the exact same thing. It's this little bottle of a sweet, syrupy tonic, and it's called Krating Daeng. The name, it turns out, translates from Thai to Red Bull. So Mateschitz gives it a try. And in that moment, something just clicks for him. He's looking at this little local tonic, and where anyone else would just see a quick fix for being tired, he sees something huge. He sees the blueprint for a global phenomenon. So what does he do? He tracks down the man who created Krating Daeng, a guy named Chaleo Uvidya. And by 1984, they formed a partnership, founding a new company, Red Bull GmbH. Each of them invests $500,000 for an equal share. And then after 3 long years of tweaking and perfecting the formula, Red Bull officially launches in their home market of Austria in 1987. So, with the company now a real thing, Mateschitz focused on the 2 things that would go on to define Red Bull's entire future: the product itself and a marketing philosophy that pretty much broke every rule in the book. First up, the product. That original Ta formula, it was thick, it wasn't carbonated, and it was intensely sweet. So Mateschitz adapted it for Western palates, right? He added carbonation, he refined the flavor, and then he obsessed over the packaging. At a time when pretty much every other drink on the shelf came in a standard wide can, Red Bull's slim blue and silver can was totally unique. It just felt different. It felt premium before you even popped the tab. But the real masterstroke, the thing that changed everything, was the marketing strategy. And the strategy was this. There would be almost no traditional advertising. No TV commercials, no billboards, no big splashy media campaigns, none of it. Instead, he built what you can only really call an anti-marketing machine. He went after very specific groups: students pulling all-nighters, clubbers who needed to keep going, athletes looking for that extra edge. He created these wing teams, young ambassadors driving around in branded Mini Coopers, showing up at college libraries and nightclubs and sporting events to hand out free cans. But here's the key. They gave them out strategically to the people who actually needed that energy, right then and there. And that created this genuine personal connection that a billboard could never, ever touch. And then, of course, came the tagline that pulled it all together. Just 4 simple words. But they were infinitely flexible. It could be about physical performance, mental focus, a creative breakthrough, you name it. Red Bull gives you wings. It was absolutely perfect. Pretty soon, Mateschitz had another realization. Telling people your drink gives them wings? Yeah, that's one thing. But actually showing them someone trying to fly? Well, that's something else entirely. So Red Bull started sponsoring athletes, but not the big mainstream stars. No, they went to the fringes. They found these spectacular but seriously underfunded sports like snowboarding, freestyle motocross, and big wave surfing. These sports looked incredible on camera, the athletes were genuinely grateful for the support, and this is crucial, because there was no established media covering them, Red Bull could own all the content. But just sponsoring other people's events was only the beginning. The real pivot, the game-changing move, was making the leap from sponsorship to outright ownership. They stopped paying to be a small logo in someone else's story and started building their own from the ground up. Because when you own the event, you own everything: the branding, the production, the content, the entire story. And they started creating these events that were unlike anything the world had ever seen before. Things like Red Bull Rampage, where you have mountain bikers literally riding down near vertical cliff faces in Utah. I mean, it is genuinely one of the most terrifying and incredible things you will ever see. Then you have the Red Bull Air Race. Think about this. Pilots flying through these tight courses of inflatable pylons at over 370 kilometers per hour, just a few meters off the water. The speed and the precision are just absolutely breathtaking. And then, just to show they didn't take themselves too seriously, you have Red Bull Flugtag. This is where amateur teams build these homemade human-powered flying machines and then launch them off a giant ramp. They almost always crash immediately into the water. It's totally ridiculous, it's hilarious, and it's completely 100% on brand. So after mastering the art of creating their own spectacles, Red Bull's ambition just kept growing. The next logical step, if you can call it that, wasn't just to create events, but to own the actual teams competing at the very highest level of global sport. So, in 2004, Red Bull just completely shocked the motorsport world by buying the struggling Jaguar Formula One team. All the experts called it a silly marketing stunt, but Mateschitz went out and hired the legendary designer Adrian Newey, and by 2010, Red Bull Racing had won its first of 4 consecutive world championships. They didn't just compete, they built a dynasty. They did the same thing in football. They bought a team in Austria, then another one in New York, and then, pretty controversially, they founded a brand new club in Germany, RB Leipzig. And despite a lot of anger from traditional fans, they invested, they developed talent, and they pushed that club all the way to the Champions League. Now, the piece of the puzzle that holds all of this together is the Red Bull Media House, which they started in 2007. And you have to understand, this isn't just a marketing department. It is a full-blown global media company. It produces feature films, documentaries, live broadcasts, you name it. See, most brands have to pay to get into the media. Red Bull just became the media. And then came the moment where every single thread of this 30-year strategy, the events, the media house, the sheer ambition, all came together in one single event. On October 14th, 2012, the entire world held its breath for a project called Red Bull Stratos. Felix Baumgartner stood in a tiny capsule 39 kilometers above the surface of the Earth. He stepped out, and he jumped. He was in free fall for over 4 minutes, reaching a top speed of 1,357 kilometers per hour. He literally broke the sound barrier with his own body. 8 million people watched it live just on YouTube. It was, at the time, the biggest live stream in the history of the internet. It was the ultimate brand statement. It was the most perfect, the most literal, the most awe-inspiring execution of that simple forward tagline you could ever imagine. Red Bull didn't just put their logo on it. They conceived it, they funded it, and they produced it for the entire world to see. So, okay, let's just boil this all down. After all of that, why did this completely unconventional, honestly audacious strategy actually work so well? Well, the numbers kind of speak for themselves, don't they? Today, Red Bull sells around 12 billion cans a year in over 175 countries. Their annual revenues are now well over 10 billion euros. This is not some niche brand anymore. It is a global behemoth built on a totally new model. The success really came down to a few core principles. First, instead of selling a product, they sold a feeling. Second, instead of buying media time, they just became the media. They chose deep, authentic connections within niche communities over the shallow reach of the masses. They always played the long game, investing patiently for years. And maybe most importantly, they made the brand almost invisible. And that right there is the greatest trick Red Bull ever pulled. They created content that was so compelling, so focused on incredible human achievement, that you completely forget you're being marketed to. The drink itself is the very last thing on your mind. Dietrich Mateschitz himself said it best. He said, "Red Bull doesn't bring products to consumers, it brings consumers to products." Just think about what that really means for a second. Every single event, every F1 championship, every jump from the edge of space, it was all designed to create a world so extraordinary, so compelling, that you just want to be a part of it. And the price of entry into that world? It's just a small blue and silver can.